All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's information session. We are here today to talk about the Pass Open Call at Snug Harbor. Thank you for joining us. If you need closed captions, you should be able to hover over the bottom of your screen if you are on a desktop, and there is an option to select closed captioning. We are also recording this session and will be posting it onto our YouTube channel sometime within the next couple of days. So if you are really interested in kind of diving in deeper or want to take another look and kind of go back and use this as a resource, you will be able to do so. And at the end of today's info session, I will place the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. I want to take a moment. If I'm the only one that's conducting today's webinar, so I'm assuming you all can hear me and see me just fine. If for some reason you have any difficulties or technical assistance that you might need, just please feel free to send us a comment, or you can drop just a note in the chat. I also want to call attention to the Q&A box. There is a Q&A box available. It should be on the bottom of your screen if you are on a desktop. And if you have a question that comes up about today's info session, if you're not finding the answer that you need, we're going to take some time toward the end to go over some Q&A. So feel free to type your question in the chat. And if it's not addressed in the info session, I will answer it toward the end of today's session. I would like to take a moment just to thank our supporters. PASS, which stands for Performing Arts Salon Saturdays, is made possible through generous lead support from the Howard Gilman Foundation and with additional support from the New York State Council on the Arts. With the support of Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature. We also received support from the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. We're really excited today to go over this program. There's a lot of information to cover, but we want to give thanks to our funders because they are, the supporters who make this program possible. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the CUNY Dance Initiative, which is a proud partner with Snug Harbor on this program. So I'm going to start our presentation. I'm going to move through some slides. I'm going to go over the details. And again, if you have a question, you have a burning question that you don't see answered along the way, feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat, and we'll address it toward the end. All right. So here's the part that always is challenging, is scrolling to the next slide. So I'd like to start today by just doing a little bit of context around this program, around our organization, for those of you who might be coming to Snug Harbor for the first time, or maybe you are familiar with Snug Harbor, but from a different angle. I'm going to take a moment just to kind of situate us. So Snug Harbor Cultural Center and Botanical Garden is located on the North Shore of Staten Island. We are, in New York City. We are one of the 5 boroughs, but we are separated by a body of water. So if you are from Staten Island, hello, welcome. If you're not from Staten Island, you may have come to visit by taking the ferry or other modes of transportation. But we're located on the North Shore of Staten Island. We're about 10 minutes away from the Staten Island Ferry. We are accessible by public transportation via the S40 and S44 buses that are MTA buses. And so we're a kind of centrally located spot for artists and communities looking to engage with the local Staten Island art scene. So A lot of what happens at Snug Harbor around the arts is through the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art. The Newhouse Center is housed in the oldest and largest building on campus, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. You can see the entrance to the main hall in this slide with a really lively, engaging performance. This was actually an image from 2015 when we had Yoshiko Tuma, a dance and performance artist, present a piece with an assortment of really amazing artists. This is Steve Swell on trombone and Jody Melnick dancing. And so this just gives you a little bit of a flavor of what is possible in these beautiful, iconic buildings. So the Newhouse Center is Staten Island's leading incubator for bold and innovative art. It is one of the programs that Snug Harbor offers to the public, and we've been dedicated to developing and presenting new work in contemporary art and performance for 48 years. It's been a long run. Snug Harbor first opened its doors to the public in 1977. We'll go a little bit more into the history, but we have great pride in our service to local, citywide, regional, and international artists. We do it all across the visual and performing arts through residencies, performances, exhibitions, public art, and other programs. So that's just a little taste of what the Newhouse does at Snug Harbor. And then I'm going to take over to the next slide, an image of an aerial view of Sailor's Snug Harbor, which is the original use of the site. This site was originally a home for retired sailors. So you'll see at the bottom here, it's referred to as Sailor's Snug Harbor. This is an image from the SUNY Maritime Archives, and they have done a lot to preserve the history of Sailor's Snug Harbor, as does the Noble Maritime Collection located on the grounds of Snug Harbor. And so as you can see, a lot of it looks very similar then as it does now. So unfortunately, the waterfront might look a little bit different. We don't have a train line anymore, although the remnants of the tracks still exist on the shorefront. But we still, in a lot of ways, look like this bucolic image with the front row of Greek Revival buildings, the central building of which is currently used as the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art. And we have a row of houses here that you'll see later on. That's where we house artists in residence. And so as you can see, it was a sprawling campus. We attribute that to the original mandate of Sailor's Snug Harbor, which was to serve the maritime trade industry. And so many sailors who might have worked their whole lives at sea often didn't have necessarily the roots to come home. And once they retired, or they, for some reason had to stop working, they often didn't have roots to come home to. And so Sir Robert Richard Randall, who was the person who basically created Sailor's Snug Harbor in the 1800s. It was founded in 1801, actually, with the help of Alexander Hamilton. And so Robert Richard Randall's vision was to serve sailors and create a space for them to retire, to have a safe haven, literally a snug harbor. And so that history is embedded in everything we do. It's in all of our, our mission, our vision, our values, and it's still very present on the site, literally through the architecture, through the buildings, and through its lively history. I will say that the history of Sailor's Snug Harbor goes back to 1801. It spans, the 19th century into the 20th century. And then at one point, it was the largest charitable institution in the United States. We had over 1,000 sailors live here and kind of rest here, in retirement. In the mid 20th century, with a lot of changes socially, economically, etc., the Sailors Snug Harbor found it difficult to maintain the buildings and difficult to keep that vision alive. And so in the I would say the late 50s, early 60s, there were plans to basically transform Snug Harbor into a private development, and private developers actually purchased the land and were planning to raise the buildings and build private condominiums. And so that kind of was happening around the same time as Penn Station. The original Penn Station was demolished, and there was a big preservation movement coming up in New York City. And so a lot of local artists, a lot of local community members who knew this, what we used to call them the snugs, the sailors that lived here, the history of this site was very important to people. They started to rally together, and ultimately, with the help of Jackie Kennedy Onassis and many other individuals, I name her just because she was a pretty prolific person who came to Snug Harbor in the 70s and helped to preserve its history. A lot of people band together to save the site, and the city came in and purchased the buildings. They were among the first New York City landmarks in the 1960s, and that began its shift into a cultural center. And so Snug Harbor is here for the communities of New York City and Staten Island, and so much of that has been about art and artistry and the local and citywide artists that really transform the site every time they come with a project. So that's just a little background. I think it's very helpful to understand the context of the site because it is a very big part of this residency. It will, our goal is that the history, the culture, the communities that are here will help to inform in some shape or form your residency experience. So that's a little bit of history. So now we'll kind of shift gears into the present. And we're going to focus on just kind of some basic information around the open call. So what is PASS? PASS is an acronym. What does it stand for? PASS stands for Performing Arts Salon Saturdays, and it is a residency program that focuses on the performing arts and takes place at Snug Harbor. Our focus for this residency is on the creation and development of new original work in dance, music, theater, and multidisciplinary performance. And so I want to stress the new original work. So this is not for, if you are remounting a play that has already been written, or you are, producing a piece that was created by another artist. This might not be the best fit for you. I do say that with the caveat of if you've created a project or you had a reading or even a first draft performance in the past, but you want to take a piece and kind of rework it. If you are the author of that piece and you have a new vision or you want to add new elements, that would be appropriate as long as it's your original piece and as long as there's a new element that you're adding to it. So the focus again is on the creation and development of new original work. Our disciplines are dance, music, theater, and multidisciplinary art performance. And so it's a little broad in terms of what that could entail. And I'll show some demonstrations of previous projects in a little while, because we understand that you might not neatly fit into one category. We kind of leave it a little bit open, but the primary medium should take place through the body, whether it's a live performance of music or theater or some combination of all of the above. For this particular opportunity, we are seeking applications for the next cohort of artists. I will be very clear that we only have 4 spots for this residency. It's a competitive process. We receive over 100 applications in the previous years annually to fill 4 spots. So it's a competitive process, but it's interesting in that, we try to find the right balance of projects that really will speak to the community, that will really afford the artist with the space, time, and support that they need to support their work. So, I think it's it's worthwhile to pursue if this appeals to you and you think that your project might be a good fit. It's worth putting your name in the hat. We do a diligent panel process, which I'll talk a little bit about in a bit. And it's, you know, it's always eye-opening to go through an application process. So um the past program, so I'll talk a little bit about our program objectives. And I also just wanted to say, and I didn't mention it earlier, that we are actually marking our 10-year anniversary of PASS. And so in 2015, this program kicked off under the direction of Gabri Krista, who is a Staten Island-based artist, but has done a lot of work in so many places in dance and film. And Gabri really set out a really remarkable vision to bring performing artists to Snug Harbor to really have the space, time, and support that they needed to create interesting, innovative, and bold artistry. And so we are carrying on that program. We've been able to build it and grow it over the last decade. And so this is a really special moment for the incoming next group of artists, I think, because we're marking a really important milestone in this program's history. So to dive into the details about the program objectives. So the objectives of PASS are to provide space and support for performing artists at different stages in their careers to develop and deepen their craft. So this is not solely an emerging artists award, nor is it, necessarily for an artist at any stage. If you are a mid-career artist, if you are an artist that has had more institutional support, you are certainly welcome to apply. Each panel is different, and so it's really the selection process is really going to be rooted in the panel that we select, and making sure that we're balancing multiple priorities and trying to find the right balance of artists. So there's it's kind of not quite 100% a formula, but we've had artists that are further along in their career and process, and we've had artists who were just coming out of their emergence, or they're creating for in their early stages of their career, or artists who are maybe established in one discipline and shifting into another discipline. That's also invited for applications. We are also really eager to incubate discourse and community engagement around new ideas and artistic expression. And what that means is that we are really interested in gathering people together, gathering audiences with artists to have conversations. We want to know about your creative process. We want to give you the tools that you need to express that creative process to others. And that usually takes the shape of the Q&A that happens at the end of the public performance, but it also can happen through workshops, through other means like doing a Facebook Live or Instagram Live, where you're able to talk to people about your work. And this residency is not kind of just come in and be totally isolated. We do recognize that artists need the space, and kind of sometimes that means going into a little bit of a silo, but we also want there to be moments of connection with the community. And so if you're an artist that's really looking for that moment of connection and you want to have a dialogue, this might be a good opportunity for you. So we're also very keen on cultivating a supportive environment for artists to take creative risks in their process, practice, and vision. And so we're going to provide you with the infrastructure, the tools you need to step into your practice and maybe push yourself a little further. What does it mean if you have dedicated rehearsal time? Maybe you don't get that every day. Maybe you're working full time. Maybe you're doing other priorities. So this kind of carves out time for you to really kind of go a little deeper, maybe push yourself. The idea that you come in with may not be the idea that you leave with, and we find that exciting. So taking time to really reflect on what it is you're hoping to gather from this residency for yourself, and being open to the process that you can come in here and the space might inspire you in a different way. You might have an encounter with an artist or a community member walking around the grounds, and that might change things for you. And so being able, I think being open to take a little risk in your creative work is a very big aspiration for us, to give you the tools to do that. So we're going to shift to a little scheduling. So the application is now open. There is a link on Google, and it's on our website. The deadline for applications is April 10th, 2025. That's 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And so that's the end of the night. I recommend getting it in before then. And once that application closes, we will be reviewing proposals and engaging in the panel process. We aim to have all notifications, whether you are invited for the residency or not. We aim to notify all applicants by June 25th, 2025. In an ideal situation, we would get to you much sooner than that, and that's quite possible, but we want to understand that there's a lot of next steps that go into the panel process and selecting the proposals and reviewing them. So we want to give ourselves enough time to do that. So if you are eager to get your notification, just know that you'll hear from us no later than June 25th, 2025. From there, the artists that are selected, we will work with you to select 4-week residencies that will be scheduled between September 2025 and through June 2026. So this is a full year that we're looking at in terms of calendaring out. These residencies are typically 4-week residencies. So you come in and you're here typically for 4 consecutive weeks. And so that could be scheduled anytime within that year-long window. Each selection process will culminate, each selected project will culminate in a public performance that is scheduled toward the end of your residency. And so that's usually the last weekend of your 4 weeks. And that's an opportunity in a very work in process style. It's not a formal, fully produced performance. It's usually a kind of daytime studio showing of your work that could be in a multitude of environments on Snug Harbor's campus. We'll go into more detail about the venues that we have. And that's your opportunity, again, that sort of culminating moment to share your work with the community. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge a note for any dancers or choreographers that are listening in. So as I said, we're going to select 4 artists from this open call. We do a separate open call specifically for one dedicated CUNY Dance Initiative artist in residence. In partnership with the College of Staten Island. We actually, that selection process just closed a couple of weeks ago. So if you applied to that, you do not have to apply to pass. Now, if you apply to pass, we will look at your application twice. So there is still the opportunity, if you do not get the CUNY Dance Initiative, that you can get pass. But that's really a question about your capacity as an applicant. Do you have the time, space? Is it worth it to you to apply to both? You're certainly not prohibited from applying to both. You can, but I just would encourage you to think about your time and resources in submitting an application. It does technically increase your chances, because if you don't get one, you're still considered for the other. So that's something for you to decide. We do the open call for the CUNY Dance Initiative annually. So if for some reason you missed that deadline and you want to be considered for that, that's for all CUNY participating schools, and then select partners like Snug Harbor, which are outside of the CUNY system, in affiliation with the local college. That's something maybe worth looking into as well for next time. So moving forward to go through the award for pass. So this year we're really excited. We were able to increase the residency fee from $1,500 to $2,000. So for the 4-week residency, we will compensate you $2,000 to support your residency and performance as an honorarium. We also document the performance. So we will bring in a photographer who will videotape it and photograph it. Those documentations can be used for your portfolio. You are welcome to use them widely to, as an archive of your work. We just ask for credit for the photographer and things of that nature. The $2,000 is, again, like we understand that producing art is not easy and very expensive, and so I don't want to by any means, suggest that $2,000 is, going to cover it all. But like the hope is that that $2,000 can be used to help underwrite your time over the 4 weeks. That it can help if you are planning to work with a collaborator, or if there's a piece of research that you're engaging in, that might help to support that process for you. In addition to that, we also award up to 100 hours of rehearsal time in the dance center or the galleries that we have, depending on the nature of your project and what you need to house your work. We will work with you to find the best spaces to have some dedicated rehearsal time. 100 hours goes by, I would say, pretty quickly if you are really dedicated to being here for 4 weeks. Like kind of, it's really, I think, a very, it's a very nice amount of time. Not everyone uses all 100 hours, and that's a-okay, but it affords you the space to basically come in and rehearse. If you wanted to, from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, or whatever it is. We'll work with you to make sure that you have a rehearsal schedule that fits the mode of your current needs. And, we've heard that the dance studios in particular, especially for artists who are working with theater, movement, dance, that the dance studios in particular are really wonderful spaces to just have that time to really dive into your process. In addition to all that, we offer a 1-month access to a private residence in one of our historic cottages located on the grounds of Snug Harbor. And so that usually takes place in the 4 weeks leading up to that culminating performance. And you have essentially have full access to that cottage 24/7. You can come and go as you please. We work out with you all the details on that. And it's a really nice way, I think, to ground yourself in your residency when, a lot of us are on the go constantly in New York City in particular, and even if you can carve out a couple of weekends from that time, or if you are able to stay all 4 weeks, we certainly know that's not always doable or feasible for everyone. But if you can carve out a bit of time to stay over, that is really, I think, one of the most unique assets of this residency program, is that you get to literally wake up, have your morning coffee on the porch in an idyllic park, look out at the gardens, look out at the wildlife, and be able to walk over in your Uggs or whatever to the dance studios or to the galleries or to other spaces that you're working in, and then get to share that out with the community at the end. So that life cycle of being able to live and work and then share is really integral to this residency program. So for eligibility, this is a free and open call. It is geared toward artists who are based in the New York City metropolitan area. So that includes the 5 boroughs. That includes, in the sort of vicinity of New Jersey, if you are living in Newark or Hoboken, or, in proximity to New York City, Long Island, etc., you are welcome to apply. I will say that, we are not able to cover additional travel expenses. So if you are in the metro area, but you're not necessarily like, super, super close, I would just factor that in. How will you get here? What is the travel arrangements that you can accommodate? Because that's not something that we do within the scope of the residency package. If you have a car, you are more than welcome to drive here. You can leave your car in the parking lot. We have parking passes, things like that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's accessible through public transportation as well. For eligibility, we are really looking for artists who have a demonstrated history of creating original work and live performance. And again, those categories that we kind of focus on are dance, music, sound composition. So if you're creating new original compositions, theater, and multidisciplinary performance. We've had artists who are working again between multiple disciplines. So a recent example, which I'll show an image of soon, is an artist who was creating 3-channel video installations, but was a sound artist. And so it was a layered project where there was sound and film involved. But because they were grounded in the liveness of it, it made sense for the panel to select their project. And again, I want to emphasize that, when we say demonstrated history of creating work, that means that even if you're an emerging artist and you're just starting out, that you can point to at least a couple of public performances that you've done of your work, whether that was in a DIY space or outdoors or in a venue. It doesn't have to be commissioned or have to be presented formally by an institution, but just to be able to say, I have a record of doing performances for the public in some capacity over the last couple of years. We do look for that. As an artist, you must be over 18 to apply, so 18 or over to apply. Artists who are not in a college or university degree granting program are eligible. If you are enrolled in a college or university degree granting program, and that goes for undergrad and grad, between August 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026, you are not currently eligible to apply. And that goes for if you are in a full-time or part-time program. So unfortunately, if you are planning to be in school in a full or part-time capacity at a college or university between those dates, this year you are not eligible to apply, but we encourage you to think ahead and if you happen to be graduating, maybe look toward next year. And then we are currently advising that if you are a past artist in the past, if you've already received this residency, that you're not eligible to apply again. That's because we have so many applicants, and we want to make sure that we are giving opportunities to artists who have not already received this specific support. So if you are a previous past artist, we would love for you to spread the word and stay connected in other ways, but at this time you are not eligible to apply. So those are the eligibility requirements. And now we'll focus on program requirements. So if you are selected to be a past artist in residence, these are the deliverables that we will ask of you. And so it's worthwhile to kind of reflect and see, like, do I have the space and time as an artist with all the other commitments that I have to commit to these things? So when you are during your residency, you commit to working on site during the agreed upon residency timeframe. And again, that doesn't mean you have to stay here all 4 weeks, 24/7, but it just means that you are engaging with the site for rehearsals, for research during that timeframe. You agree to meet and communicate with the arts staff, and that will include project developments. We do typically schedule like a mid-residency check-in, and that could be simple as like a 20-minute, like, let's just connect and talk about your project and how it's going. It could be on Zoom or in person. We're pretty flexible with that. We also ask that you share your work in a culminating work in progress public performance. That is typically something, that usually is about 30 to 40 minutes. I will say, like, during the pandemic, a lot of questions arose about just the timing and like how much artists can produce given such resources. And so we are flexible if like you're not able to present 30 minutes of material or 40 minutes of material, but we do want to be able to say like you have the space and time to develop something concrete enough to share it with an audience, to have that be an experience for yourself and for the audience, and for something to generate conversation around. So, you know, we do ask for there to be something to share, and what that looks like, we'll work with you on. But in generally speaking, that's usually how it's gone. We also, after the performance, usually right after the performance, we have a talkback session, also known as a Q&A. With the audience after the performance. And so that's usually a facilitated conversation with Snug Harbor staff and the artist. And that could be the lead artist. If you have collaborators, they might participate in that conversation as well. And that's where we usually just like encourage a dialogue about the work, about your process as an artist, about your experience in the residency, and being able to just talk about that and share what that has looked like for you. And then at the end of your residency, we will circulate an exit survey through Google Forms, and it's you know, it's a relatively brief survey, but it kind of asks to assess your experience about the facilities, about the you know, the ease of travel, about just like all the different areas of your residency experience in the performance, and that helps us to learn a little bit more about how it went for you. It helps us communicate to our funders and to our other departments that we work with collaboratively, just a little bit about how it's going. And it helps to shape in future decisions and planning for the residency, because we like to take that feedback and try to make things better the next time around. So, so that's another deliverable. And then at the end and throughout the process, we invite artists to participate in social and digital engagement around your residency. This is not required because we realize it's a lot of work sometimes to hop on Instagram or whatnot, but we've found it to be successful when an artist is collaborating with us on promotion for your culminating event and to get the word out about your work. And so that has taken the shape of, you know, cross promotion, collaborative posting. It's also taken the shape of doing like an Instagram live in the week or two before your performance and just like hopping on and be like, how's it going? And being able to talk about that a little bit. So moving on toward the criteria, a successful proposal will have a strong and clear narrative. It will have artistic merit, and it will have site responsiveness. And these things are all a little, you know, a little subjective, right? So every panel is going to look at it a little bit different. And we have a closed panel, so we don't usually release the names of the panelists, but they're all usually comprised of Snug Harbor staff and arts professionals that gather to talk about the proposals. We vet them. We look through each application quite diligently. We have an evaluative rubric that we refer back to, and we try to split up these categories, narrative, merit, and site responsiveness, about 40, 40, 20. So you'll see the numbers broken down here. That's not to say that's a hard and fast science. When we look at your work sample, we are looking at it against the narrative. Were you able to communicate yourself articulately through your language? How are you talking about your work? But then also, like, does your work stand on its own through your work sample? And for site responsiveness, I think the reality is not every project is going to connect to Snug Harbor's history or the environment so directly, and that's okay. I think what we want is that the environment will inform or shape your experience, whether that's an indirect relationship or not. This is not a residency where you just want to like go into a dance studio and just do your thing and go home. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the audience that we're hoping to appeal to for applicants. I think we're hoping that even if you're not engaging in those themes specifically, that you will be very curious about the environment, the landscape, the history of Snug Harbor, the history of Staten Island in some shape or form. So that's a pretty broad invitation, but we do look at the site responsiveness, the feasibility. Like if you have a really outlandish project and it might not make sense for the historic buildings that we have, then that might not be a great fit. If you're really looking for like a theater, like come into a proscenium theater and like do your thing, this might not be the best opportunity for you. It's a very site responsive experience to be at Snug Harbor because of the nature of our non-traditional spaces and historic buildings and gardens and grounds. And so you might need to be compelled by that a little bit to really be successful, I think, in your application. So now I'm just going to do a really like quick walkthrough of our spaces just so you get a visual as you might be working on your application. So this is an image of one of our cottage exteriors. This is Cottage B. This is one of the spaces that we have housing for artists. As you can see, it's really beautiful and scenic, and there's a really cute porch that you can roll out of bed and have your coffee on. And as I'm showing these images, I just want to emphasize that Snug Harbor is an 83-acre campus. We are a New York City public park. And so while it is idyllic and quiet and very romantic in a lot of ways, you are also on a public property. And so, you might encounter visitors along the grounds. People are very interested in the history. They might walk up to the porch to be like, what is this building? So you have to be a little bit comfortable, I think, with just knowing that you are, you're in a private house, but you're on a public property. And so just what is that balance for you? We help to make sure that you feel safe and supported and secure, but you might be interacting with guests as you walk through the campus. So that's just something to keep in mind. This is an image of one of the living rooms of the cottages. So you can see we have some furniture that supports, kind of flexibility. The couch here is also converts into a full-size bed. And so it's got that functionality where you can, kind of have recreation, but you can also, if you have a visitor or collaborator staying over, you might be able to adapt the space. And this is just another view of that. So this is one of our dining rooms. So you can see our cottages are a little rustic. So they are, they're historic buildings. They're in various states of restoration. We try to make them cute and nice and have, the amenities that you need to feel comfortable. But it is a little, it's what you see is kind of what you get. They're very basic in terms of their setup. This is one of our bedrooms. So we have a combination of twin size and full size beds. So here you have two twin size beds. In another room, you have two twin size beds. I will say we also have, so in each, we have two cottages. Each artist that's selected will get one cottage. In each of those cottages, you have 2 to 3 bedrooms. So there's a combination of maybe 3 to 4 beds in every house. And then we have the couch that converts into a bed, as well as like some additional cots and air mattresses. I will say, like, we give you the keys to the space. You literally have them to come and go. If you're working alone, that's totally fine. But obviously, as you can see, we have the capacity to support if you are working with collaborators, whether you have a small dance company or, you have a dramaturg or you're working with other people, they are more than welcome to come and stay with you during your process. We just will have to document that and have, there's some protocol around that, but that's one of the benefits of this opportunity is that if you're not working alone, you do get to have some resources to bring people in to stay with you. So here are some of our venues. So many of our past performances at the end of the residency take place in this room. This is our dance studio, one of our dance studios, and you can see there's a lot of natural light. We have beautiful floors. This room has hardwood floors that were recently refinished. They are not sprung wood, but they are amenable to dance. And in fact, a lot of, this room accommodates is dance and movement-based art. This is a space where we don't allow shoes, but we do have other spaces that permit shoes. This is our other dance studio. So this is our studio that has Marley. We also have mirrors, which are not in the view of this photo, and we have ballet bars. So it's a flexible space. If you do ballet or more traditional dance based art, you can do that in here. And then we also have gallery spaces, which are, good for live music, theater, other types of conceptual performance, multidisciplinary performance. So we have, this is one of our galleries. So there's art on the walls, as you can see. Sometimes there's not, so it kind of depends on where we are in our calendar. But again, we'll work with you to make sure that you have the spaces you need to rehearse and present your work. And so I'll just go through a couple of images of artists in action, just so you can see, get a feel for what the residency has looked like in the past. So this was a music performance, Hillary Hawk, with collaborators in the main hall, which is our oldest, largest building, interior and exterior landmarked building. This is a live music event. So this was an aerial view, and this also gives you a taste of the photo documentation that we provide. This is a piece from Rebecca Medina in 2021. Rebecca was a COVID year artist when we were kind of navigating the pandemic, and we had to postpone some of our residencies, and Rebecca was finally able to come to Snug Harbor and did a really beautiful sound walk and performance, a dance performance and sound walk across some of the gardens. And so this is Rebecca performing in the wetlands adjacent to the New York Chinese Scholars Garden, which you can see in the background. So this was a performance by Zain Alam, who is not in this frame, but Zain is a sound-based artist who was working with another musician, and they were kind of off to the left, just left of the frame. And then there was a 3-channel video installation. And Zain had a previous iteration of this project, so this is a good example, and wanted to build on it. And so while he was at Snug Harbor, he was also videotaping and filming in our gardens and our grounds. And that ultimately was edited into this video installation with a live performance. So this is an oldie but goodie. This was Nia Love performing with her son on drums in the Heritage Farm. So we do have a farm. We don't often it's also a production farm, so we have to grow things and stuff. But we do sometimes engage with our specific gardens and other on-campus areas in creative ways. This was a long time ago, and so they were actually performing on the farm. I don't know that we would necessarily do that now, but if you are interested in the farm in some way, we can certainly connect you with the department that handles and manages the farm, and there's certainly engagement opportunities around that. And this is just such a fantastic photo. So this is Ramya Ramana. She's actually in the background, and she had a whole array of collaborators that you can see performing. And this was in the gallery. You can see artwork in the background. And Ramya is a poet, and so this was a poetry performance. So spoken word, things of that nature are permitted in terms of applications, and then it really, again, just kind of depends on the panel and what resonates with the reviewers and how strong your proposal is. But this is just an example of a spoken word presentation. So this was a really cool performance. This was in 2019. We had choreographer Adrienne Westwood, and she created a really intimate performance in one of the cottages. So she was living in one of the cottages, but she actually transformed it into a performance space. And you can see this really, really beautiful presentation. She was working with a live musician, and these are some of the audience members that were situated in the space. And so we can get creative, in terms of what that performance looks like. And this is also from 2019. This is Lily Gold, a choreographer who was also working in visual art and other media. And this was the culminating performance in the dance studio. This is Marianne Soto, another dance artist, presentation from 2017, also in the dance studio. And this was our inaugural past performance. This was January of 2015. This was Peter Zumo, who is a Staten Island-based artist and very, very well-regarded composer. And this was his performance in the main hall, which is our contemporary art space. And finally, this is just an outdoor performance, and so many of the ones I showed were indoors. This is Kinesis Project Dance Theater. They were here in 2019. They do site-specific art dance space performances, and this was out in Shinbone Alley in front of a sculpture by Tat Futan. And you can see the historic architecture on full view, and just gives you a little taste of what is possible. So in review, to wrap up, the application is online. You can access it on Google. We are closing the application at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, April 10th. And so that's just a couple of weeks away, still have some time. We're a little under a month out of the application closing. And so when you're completing your application, you just want to make sure there's going to be questions at the beginning about eligibility. Going back to the eligibility criteria, you are going to have a combination of short and long form answers where you are asked to describe your residency goals, your project, what are you interested in working on, tell us a little bit about yourself. You will submit one work sample that is up to 5 minutes in length. It should show your work in action. So if you're a theater artist and you have a play, I would recommend not submitting a script. I would recommend submitting a previous example of your performance work in process. So did you do a reading? Did you record it? If you have a recording of, a reading or a previous performance, I think that will be a better guide to the panel because it's visual and they're able to kind of see it and maybe connect to it in that way. I would recommend that. If you have a bigger piece than 5 minutes, you are welcome to give us a cue point. If you do not give us a cue point and it's longer than 5 minutes, we will watch it from 00 to 5 minutes. And then after the work sample, you will be asked a voluntary demographic survey. So there's the option to, if you do not want to give us that information, there's an option to opt out of the questions. You'll still have to answer the questions, but you could just say, I do not wish to answer. And the demographic survey just kind of gives us a snapshot internally of who our applicants are. So we can assess, are we reaching all the communities of New York City? Are we able to get Staten Island artists to apply? We want to really kind of look at that internally. The demographic data is anonymous. We do share an aggregate snapshot with the panel just so they know, okay, these are how many applicants, this is where they're coming from, these are the zip codes, things of that nature. And we might take that back to certain like internal conversations, but it's anonymous and aggregate. So that's usually how the application is, kind of taken into consideration. I would recommend that you work on your answers separately from your application. So if you have a Google account or Word document or even notes, like I would just recommend kind of working on it separately, because technology can be fickle, and you don't want your application to crash for some reason, and then you lose your writing. So I would recommend trying to work on that separately. Late and incomplete submissions will not be reviewed, so please make sure to submit prior to the deadline. And again, we recommend working and saving your narrative in a separate document. If you have any questions after today, you can email info@snug-harbor.org, and we would be happy to get back to you and answer your questions. So we have just a couple of minutes to shift into a Q&A mode. I think there was at least one question in the chat. So if you have a question now and you feel like it hasn't been answered, feel free to type it in and I'll get it to you. If for some reason you are in the middle of the night woken up with a question about your application, feel free to email us and we will also, get back to you. So Q&A, does this include any music spaces at Snug Harbor? So we have, in terms of music spaces, we don't have a dedicated music space. All of our spaces are pretty flexible. The dance studios, we have 3 dance studios, 2 of which are kind of really dedicated to movement, broadly speaking, but one dance studio is a little bit smaller, and we can put music rehearsals and other things of that nature in that space. If you're a tap dance artist or you're an artist that uses shoes in your process, or props, we can set you up in that space. We also have a space called the Carpenter Shop, which I didn't share a photo of, but that's a pretty flexible modular space. And actually just this past weekend, we had our first past performance of the season of the year, and it was with Julie Maniscalco, who's a jazz composer, and that space was really great for jazz and for music. And so we have a number of indoor spaces. We have an outdoor stage. So there's a number of places for music. I would say, we are non-traditional space, so it's flexibility is always a key. So if you're an artist who's really kind of like, I don't want to say rigid, but like you have certain, restraints about where you can perform, I would say reach out to us and just ask us if you have further questions about that. Can you use the cottage as well for music rehearsals? Short answer is yes, you can use it. It's your space to use as you'd like. I would just say we are a public park and we do have noise ordinances after, like, I think 11 p.m., 10 or 11 p.m. So, if you're really, really loud, you might get some complaints, which is really dependent on how the noise level is. But in general, yes, music rehearsals in the cottage are totally acceptable. If selected, can you change the month? So to answer that question, yes. So when you are filling out your application, we have the months listed out and ask for your first, second, and third preference. We will use that in the sort of matchmaking, puzzle dancing that entails scheduling. So if you are selected and you've selected 3 months of your top 3 choices, and for some reason that's changed, or our schedule is a little bit different, we'll work with you to try to get your preferences in place. And that might look a little different than what you put on your application. I'll answer this question. I'm a singer, songwriter, and visual artist. Would it be possible to have a project considered that combines music and art creation? For example, creating 3D and 2D works that serve as a set for the music performance. Yes, that is totally acceptable if that's your process and you're a very interdisciplinary artist. I would just be mindful of the setup for whatever kind of public showing you're doing, and we'll have to talk about where the artwork is staged, if that's a part of your performance, and how it's installed and things of that nature. For pass, it's usually a low-tech performance, so it's not a fully produced performance. So we might just want to make a way to have that be a very efficient display of your art, your visual art. But that is totally acceptable in terms of your application and proposal. Can I bring a dog to live in the cottage? So no, we do not permit pets. If you have a service dog, that is a different story, and that is permissible. But if you are, it's the unfortunate reality is just, these are very old buildings, and we aren't able to accommodate non-service animals. Work sample. Can I use excerpts of different music dance clips? So 5 minutes is short and long. I would say we want to be able to see a little bit of breathing room. So I wouldn't suggest doing a reel or anything like that. If you have like two, I would say maybe like if you're, let me think about how to phrase this. You can include a couple of different excerpts. I wouldn't go too crazy on that. I wouldn't like put like 5 minutes, like 1 minute each of because we want to see a little breathing room. I think that's usually what resonates with the panel, being able to see a little bit more of their work. I would say we don't really want reels, but if you have like a piece or two that you want to kind of combine together, I might recommend just like being very clear about what we're seeing. You do have to kind of give a little description of the work sample, so that might be an opportunity to explain what we're looking at. So I see there's an artist that's both a tap dancer and musician, and that's cool. We actually have Orlando Hernandez, who's a tap artist and performer and a very interesting conceptual artist who will be here this coming month and performing. Their residency presentation will be on April 12th. So for that artist, you might want to come out for that and just see what that looks like. We actually haven't had a tap artist until Orlando was invited to this residency, so we're really excited about that. So I'm going to give another moment for any final questions. And if there are no final questions, then I will end this presentation. And again, we're going to upload this to our YouTube channel, and I will also see about the Zoom. I can try to send that out as a follow-up email to everyone that that participated in today's webinar. So there's one more question. Where can we find out about past performances happening in the upcoming months? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, so that way I can pull up that information for you. So if you give me one moment, if you go to our website and you type in snug-harbor.org, I'm going to do that now. Just hold on. Everyone, my Zoom is kind of freaking out. So I don't know if you're even still there. Let me type an answer. If you go to, okay, I'm back. All right. Snug-harbor.org, arts. So I just put an answer into the chat. I'm not sure if you can see it, but that's our website, and that has past performances that are coming up this season. I'm also going to place that into the chat here, so you can see that in the chat. I'm also going to take a moment to place the open call into the chat as well, in case you need a direct link to the open call. That's here. And you can click those and find out more information. We have most of our past performances listed for the spring. We have one more that we're posting very soon for the month of June. And then that'll give you some more information about that. Is the month from 1 to 30? So I think you mean, does it start from like the first of the month through the 30th? So short answer is no. We have a lot of factors in scheduling in terms of like, what the best performance date is. The performance that culminates the residency usually occurs, I would say, like the second Saturday of the month or so. That's not always the case, but so we usually try to backtrack from there to start the residency. So it's not directly, a full calendar month. It'll usually start somewhere in the middle, or depends on the schedule for the season. But we'll work with you on that. All right. I think those are all of our questions. And again, if you have more, you can reach out. Please do not feel hesitant to reach out to us. And you can find us on social media. We are on social media. I'm going to plug our Instagram into the chat. And that's also where you can find out a lot of real-time information about the New House Center and the arts at Snug Harbor. So if you are not following us already, I encourage you to follow us. And I want to take a moment just to thank you for sticking around for this last hour. I hope we've answered your questions, and I look forward to reading your applications. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your interest. Take care.